Law Talk with Nick Maruchak, thanks to MKI Legal, your trusted employment and family lawyers.
I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
And Nick Maruchak joins us in the studio from MKI Legal, 133 882 if you'd like to give him a bell. Good morning to you, Nick.
Good morning, Gary.
Now, you must have been listening the other day because I sometimes have a bit of a snicker when I'm talking about an issue, and it did strike me as a bit odd that the Home Affairs Minister's gone out and bought himself a Chinese-made electric vehicle, and off the back of that, has accepted that there are concerns about whether or not his car can be hacked. In other words, the Home Affairs Minister could be driving along and he takes a call from Albo and someone over in China might be able to listen in on it, that sort of thing. It's pretty funny, really, but that's where we've got to with technology. So you were having a little look at in terms of the rights of an individual, whether it be Tony Burke or whether it be me, sort of accessing the personal information that these EV manufacturers might hold on us. Really?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, these Chinese-made EVs and all EVs, they collect so much data. And the Privacy Act allows individuals to access data about them. So even if these EVs these companies are based overseas, if they're operating in Australia, an individual can make a written request to these companies and request all data about them. And this could include... this may even include information about how they use the vehicle and all bunch of stuff. So I think people should look into that and potentially make a request. If you have an EV, whether it's a Tesla or BYD, anything, just make a request and see the information they have about you. And they should. It doesn't cost anything. You've got to put it in writing. Usually takes 30 days.
So even jurisdictionally, so if it's a Chinese manufactured car, but let's say you obviously ordered it from somewhere here. That's the connection, is it, that enables you to be able to make those, call it demand request, whatever you want to call it, of any info that they have got on you through you driving your vehicle. You can do it here in Australia, even though it's a Chinese manufactured vehicle.
Yeah. So the Privacy Act does apply to businesses, overseas businesses that have a link to Australia, right? So if they're operating in Australia, they've got Australian customers, then the privacy laws do apply. So you can potentially try making a request directly to the foreign company, or if they have a subsidiary here in Australia, a wholly owned subsidiary, you can make a request to the subsidiary, and the subsidiary has to cooperate with overseas companies that hold data to try and get your data. Now, the laws in China might be more strict, and you probably won't have any luck going through the Chinese system, but you make a request here, and then if they don't comply, our commissioner has powers to take steps against these companies that don't provide the data.
You don't reckon that, in all seriousness, so the concern that the opposition were raising about Tony Burke's Chinese-built EV was that it could eavesdrop on him in the vehicle having conversations. Now, I suppose if you've got a phone that's been manufactured in China, well, you could argue, your phone could be listened in on anyway. But that's what they were concerned about. You don't reckon that would they store conversations? Can they pick up do you think they could, Nick? They could actually store them if they've got a recording of what you're saying in the car?
I think they could easily. The technology is there.
That's frightening.
That's right. They can just be recording continuous stream of data, everything that's coming in, and it could be done, right? So the Privacy Act information won't give you access to the source code, and that's really what you want to see. You want to see all the AI models and everything they do, but it'll give you the data that relates to you, so that's a start. But 100% they could actually get everything. It's a live stream of data.
All right. Just on the text line, we've got my son Caleb phoned a few weeks ago regarding a property inspection report that showed major defaults. You might remember this one.
Yep.
Thanks for your advice. He followed the steps you gave and the seller let him out of the contract. He has taken your advice around adding conditions to any future old properties he might purchase. He is in his mid-20s and it was great information. Thank you very much. So that's Donna, happy customer. Does that make you feel good?
That makes me feel good. Thank you, Donna. And the tip is basically don't accept the standard conditions that real estate agents give you. You can negotiate them. So when they give you a property inspection, an extra at the back of the sales contract, that's there generally to favour the seller. You can add more terms to it. Their standard terms just say, any structural defect, you can walk away, but structural defect is a really high bar. So I would put a a limit on how much it costs. So if it costs more than $2,000 or $5,000 to repair, then you can walk away. So try and negotiate those things.
All right. Just as a general comment, interesting niche living, this latest twist, I don't know if you just followed what I said, but they've now put themselves into administration. This is a company that claimed that it had $100 million in assets and there was no issue with cash flow. What does it mean when they go into administration like that? Does that mean that it's all got to be assessed now as to whether that's the real picture of the company, do you think?
Yeah, so we obviously have those insurance laws that protect up to 200 or 250,000 to find a new builder to come in and take over. So the insurer will step in there. I don't know if that's enough to cover depending if it's more expensive houses. But basically, when it goes to administration and insolvency, you get cents in the dollar. So the liquidator will come in and they will review the books. They will try and sell the assets to try and find enough money. Because
not just the owners of if we talk about creditors here, it's not necessarily the people who were clients in terms of their properties not being finished, but I mean there could be a chain of subbies, contractors out there that are looking for their money, and this might be the only way that they're going to get it. Administration.
Yeah, so that's right. So basically you got secured creditors and unsecured creditors, right? So the secured creditors have like a mortgage or some sort of some sort of asset they can sell. They're fine. But it's all the unsecured creditors like the subbies, like the homeowners, that will have to stand in line and just see what's left at the end of the day. So when liquidators come in, they will they have to go through a process of giving a bunch of reports, investigating to all the creditors and then see what's left. And often, the subbies might, and then all the creditors vote to see what the outcomes should be. Sometimes companies are saved with something called a deed of company arrangement, where they come in and go, you know what, some outside person will go in and will buy this asset, we'll give you a certain amount of money to the creditors. You might not get everything, but you get something better than if it just completely folds. So a lot of companies are saved by that process. But if there isn't a saving in that regard, then you just have to end up with what you get. And sometimes it could be 5 cents in every dollar. It could be 1 cent in every dollar. I know a good liquidator, Greg Quinn from HLB Man Judd. He does a lot of work, so I speak to him often about this, and they are very busy. I think that COVID, the government handouts, really kept a lot of businesses afloat. And now all the liquidators are busy. Well, a lot of businesses folding and everything's catching up.
All right. Nick, just stay there. 133 882. If you've got a question for Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal, feel free to give us a bell right now. We'll take a break. We'll come back with your calls after this. Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal. He's here in the studio. If you want to call, feel free to give us a bell. 133 882. We'll go to Craig. Hi, Craig. What's your issue, mate?
How you going, guys? Yeah, I've got a will written by a lawyer and everything. I've left a motor vehicle to one of my cousins, who's one of my best mates. I'm actually considering selling that. So if I sell the vehicle before I die, do I need to make an amendment to the will, or does it just become obsolete if the vehicle's sold and I pass away?
Yep. So when you're leaving items, like specific items, there are two ways of doing it. If you specifically refer to the item, say, I leave my Holden Commodore to Joe, and when you die, you don't have the Holden Commodore anymore, then it's just ignored. It doesn't go to Joe. Joe doesn't get anything. But if you say something more generic, like I leave my primary motor vehicle to Joe, or I leave all my motor vehicles to Joe, then it doesn't matter, if you can buy and sell vehicles as you go, and it will go to Joe. So how did you word it in your will?
It's a specific vehicle. Yeah, it's one that he helped me build quite a few years ago, and now I'm considering selling it.
Yep. So you have to change it, and you can either rewrite a new will, or you can do something called a codicil. So a codicil is basically when you make an amendment to the original will, you just sign another document. It has to be witnessed by two people, and when you die and it goes to probate, both the codicil and the original will are lodged. So if it's just that one change, codicil is maybe cheaper for a lawyer to draft than a straight up will. So that's something you think about, but you will need to change it.
Thank you very much.
All right, mate. Thanks very much for that, Craig. Let's go to Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I'm just wondering, is there any recourse in taking ASIC to court based on failures and negligence? Because a lot of these companies going solvency, we all pay solvency fees and sign a solvency form, but I haven't been audited in 10 years, and I doubt they know how much money I've got in my bank and whether I could satisfy my debts. And no matter how many times they're warned about various companies, they seem to pull their feet and not do anything, and everybody else seems to get punished for it, and they just keep on going. I was wondering if there's anything legally that we could actually do against the government department like ASIC for their failures.
All right.
Yeah, so I think ASIC has been in the spotlight recently about not doing enough. I think they're under-resourced. Can you sue them for, say, if you were going to make a claim? I don't think you can, but you would make a claim for negligence. You'll say this government department is negligent. They haven't done their job properly, right? But you just can't do that. There's been old cases in the past where people sued police officers, police stations for not looking for preventing crime, and they lost, right? So ASIC is one of those things where it's politician regulated. There is you can complain to like the Commonwealth Ombudsman, for example, right? So they will govern all entities, so that might be a place to start, but you're not going to get much.
So you couldn't, okay, Kevin, I'm not putting ideas in your head here, but couldn't Kevin sort of say, lodge some proceedings against the commissioner of ASIC specifically? I mean, we see it with the ATO sometimes, and I mean, it's a brave thing to do because they got deeper pockets than I'm sure Kevin has. No offence, Kev, but I mean, is it something you can do, or does that mean that the commission has to be liable for something as part of your?
Yeah. So if I dig into these ASIC laws, there'll be a provision that will say the commissioner is not responsible for anything. They are whatever they do in the context of they're not personally liable, but you can sue the office, but the Commonwealth Ombudsman is the place where a person can complain to ASIC, about administrative stuff. So I would try that. Give that a crack. Commencing proceedings against ASIC is going to be
stressful,
expensive if you lose, and you probably and the Attorney General will get involved, and you're just going to have the whole weight of the government against you on that. So you're better off. Also, consider making a freedom of information request as well.
Oh, yeah.
So go and make those and see what you can come up with. Make a request about all of the failures of ASIC to investigate companies and do that. That'll cost you some money. They can charge you for their administrative time at cost. So that would help as well. And then see what you can find with that. And if you find some negligence, maybe report it to a local politician, report it to the Commonwealth Ombudsman.
Yeah. All right, Kevin. I mean, I'm sort of hearing you, but that is a major step if you go down that path. So you'd have to think long and hard about it. Mark's there. G'day, Mark.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Good.
I just want to ask a question in regards to strata. They seem to be a law unto themselves, and they just keep trying to put fees up. And I'm at a loss as to what we can do about it, because they seem just to think that we can just pluck money out of thin air. And they don't provide us a good enough service as it is. And when they actually have to do something, they start talking about the fees going up. I moved into a property just over a year and a half ago. I moved in on the January. We had a strata meeting with the residents and the homeowners on the February. And look at me, on the March, it went up $80 a quarter. And nothing's been done. And we're just like, we don't feel like we should be ought to be paying for stuff. Where do we go legally in that sense? Do you know?
Yeah. So first thing is you've got the strata company, right? They are the ones that manage the day-to-day affairs of the building and the premises. So you can vote them out. You'll need to get a majority resolution at these annual general meetings and say, we're not happy with it. Get all the owners together and try and vote them off and get someone else on there.
And you can ask for a review of the strata fees. I mean, because where do they come from? Is there a formula, or how do they just go, you're $860 a quarter? I mean, I don't know.
They just pluck it out. They pluck it out of the air. They'll just charge as much as they can get away with, right? And I think strata companies is something I've also read that they're looking more into that because they are taking the mickey.
Investigations.
Yep. And then if you're really unhappy, you go to SAT, the State Administrative Tribunal, right? That is where they can have disputes between owners and the strata companies. And when you go to SAT, generally speaking, you don't have to pay costs if you win or lose, so that there's less risk there. But you would request information from the strata company about their fees. They have to disclose all of that. They have to give you financial statements at every annual general meeting. And at the meeting, you will stand up and you would voice your concern and say these fees are too high, and see if people will agree with you. And that even voicing that concern at the meeting might cause them to think twice.
If Mark's still there, is he still there? And Mark, have you had an AGM? Yeah. Have you had your AGM in relation to your strata company lately?
Yes, we have, and we've complained about it and said that that it's too high, and they seem to think that it's in line with what's going on. I'm telling you now, there's only 4 houses here. They don't actually do anything with our properties. All I've got is 2 street lights because there's only 4 of us in the street, and there's a swimming pool.
What's your fee?
And that's the.
Do you know what it is?
At the moment, I mean, it's 354.
A quarter.
They're talking about it going up.
A quarter. Yeah. Okay. So $1,200. Yeah.
So maybe get some quotes. Call up other strata companies. Go, look, how much would you charge to administer the property?
This property, yeah.
Right? And then compare them to what you're being charged. And if there's a big difference, the numbers don't lie. You just put it towards the meeting, put it towards the others, and you can also look at the bylaws and see if you can call a meeting, right? An extraordinary meeting. You might have to have a minimum number of owners, but Mark has 4, right?
Yeah, 4.
4. So get the other 3 on board and you're right.
All right, mate. Get some other... just work out whether or not they're telling you the truth in terms of what they're charging you compared to others, I reckon is a good starting point. Thank you very much, Nick, for all of your advice today. Really appreciate it. And Caleb, of course, very happy with the advice you got a little while ago. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Gary.
It's coming up to 3 minutes to 12.